Acclaimed as the Nightingale of India, Sarojini Naidu is the most famous woman poet in Indian writing in English before independence, just as Kamala Das. And this is something I'm fond of telling my students. Just as Kamala Das is the most famous woman poet in Indian writing in English after independence. Sarojini Naidu's collections published in her lifetime are The Golden Threshold, The Bird of Time, The Broken Wing. Her poetry is remarkable for its prosody. It's doubtful whether even Tennyson and Swinburne had an ear for English sounds as gifted as the ear of Sarojini Naidu. But after independence, in the post-independence period, Sarojini Naidu's reputation suffered a downfall. She has been criticized for the shallowness of her thematic concerns, for her weakness for expressing conventional ideas, for her refusal to challenge the status quo. I would say that this is a tad too harsh on her. It is also a result of the failure of the critics of the post-independence period to read her poetry and interpret her poetry in the spirit in which she wrote it. As we shall understand today, it is not only prosodically perfect. Sarojini Naidu's poetry is not only prosodically perfect, but also thematically profound. If we can spare the efforts, and if we can acquire the wherewithal to analyze, evaluate, and comprehend her poetry systematically in the right spirit, we are sure to understand that the poetry of Sarojini Naidu is not lacking in thematic profundity. The title of the poem comprises just 3 words: In the Forest. 3 very ordinary words. It's a short title, rather short title. It's a simple title, and it's a very appropriate title because the narrative of the poem takes us into the forest. The poem discusses what happens in the forest. So this is a very appropriate title. But I will not leave it at that. What is the meaning of forest? Forest is a tract of land, especially a large tract of land, thickly, densely crowded with trees, plants, shrubs, undergrowth. That is forest. So we are in the forest. But you must remember this is written by an Indian poet in an Indian context. And forest to the people of India means many things, means something which it does not mean to others, especially to Westerners, especially to the practitioners of Abrahamic religions. We are a civilization which worships trees, which worships forests. We are a forest civilization. If there had been no forests in India, there would have been no India. In Kalidasa's Abhijnana Shakuntalam, we come across the hermitage of Kanva in the forest. In the Ramayana, Rama is exiled for 14 years to the forest. For us, forests are sacred. So, forest does not mean a lot of trees, a lot of undergrowth, a lot of shrubs, a lot of plants, a lot of wildlife. It means a sacred space. It means a space of wisdom. Because our rishis had hermitages in forests and they practiced meditation in forests and they taught their students in the forest. And you must remember that the great Vedas originated from the forests. In order to understand oneself, one has to leave this urban world and go to the forest. Again, Vanaprastha is an important stage in human life from the Indian perspective. Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and then Sannyasa. It is only when you are in the forest, when you are alone in the forest, when you meditate in the forest, when you pray in the forest, that you attain wisdom. So, in the forest is about going to the forest, going to a sacred space, going to a space of wisdom. I've already pointed out that Sarojini Naidu is looked upon or looked down upon by many post independence Indian critics. They say that she is thematically shallow. I would postulate that such a conclusion is a reflection not on Sarojini Naidu but on the critics themselves. This short poem, In the Forest, is, is a treasure house of traditional Indian wisdom, as we shall see when we proceed with the poem. Here, O my heart, let us burn the dear dreams that are dead. Here in the wood, let us fashion a funeral pyre of fallen white petals and leaves that are mellow and red. Here let us burn them in noon's flaming torches of fire. I think I have to read the first two lines of the poem once again. This is a poem which should be read slowly and carefully because it is a seemingly simple poem, even a seemingly naive poem, but there are complex profundities beneath the surface of the poem. So we shall read the first two lines of the poem once again. Here, O my heart, let us burn the dear dreams that are dead. Here in the wood, let us fashion a funeral pyre. The mood is somber. The mood at the beginning of the poem is very negative. The speaker, or rather the speakers, because we hear the voices of multiple narrators speaking together. The speakers are overcome by a sense of despair. Their dreams have been shattered, and they have decided to burn their dear dreams, their beloved dreams, because the dreams are dead. The speakers are dreams, the speakers had dreams, the dreams died, and now they have decided to burn their dreams. And what do? They go to the forest. Here in the wood, they go to the forest in order to burn their dreams to ash. And how do they burn their dreams to ash? By building a funeral pyre. A funeral pyre is a set of logs on which the dead body is placed. and then more logs are placed over the dead body, and the logs are set fire to, and the body is burnt along with the logs. This is a typical Hindu way of disposing of the dead, cremation. So at the beginning of the poem, we find a mood of despair, a mood of destruction, a mood of death, a mood of disillusionment overwhelming the speakers. The speakers had dreams, the dreams died, and now they're going to burn the dreams to ash. And they go into the forest in order to build a funeral pyre, create a funeral pyre for burning their dreams to ash. Please do not think that there is something unusual, extraordinary, or strange about this sentiment at the opening of the poem. Because as one grows older and older, one becomes sadder and sadder. Almost all old people are overwhelmed with negative emotions. To strike a rather personal note, I was very happy, excited, hopeful, confident in my youth. But now, as an old man, I'm overcome by emotions of sadness, sorrow, loss, despondency, despair, defeat, destruction, even death. I'm reminded of what William Wordsworth says in Resolution and Independence. I quote, "We poets in our youth begin in gladness, but thereof come in the end despondency and madness." Unquote. I think Wordsworth should have written, not just I, some editors think that Wordsworth should have written sadness rather than madness. In that case, the lines would read thus: "We poets in our youth begin in gladness, but thereof come in the end despondency and sadness. Of fallen white petals and leaves that are mellow and red, here let us burn them in noon's flaming torches of fire. Of fallen white petals. How is the pyre created? Using petals, petals that have fallen, and leaves that are mellow and red, leaves that are mellow, mature, soft, and red, red in the sense not green, they're dry. The funeral pyre is created using foreign petals and foreign leaves. Here let us burn them in noon's flaming torches of fire. How do you set fire to the pyre? Using the torches of noon, noon's flaming torches of fire. Obviously, it's a tropical country. The noons are very hot. And using the heat of the noons, which the poet puts it as noon's flaming torches of fire, the pyre is lit. Why should we go into the forest to build the funeral pyre? Why can't the cremation be conducted here and now? The answer to this is that from the Indian perspectives, the forest has always been sacred space. And we want the cremation to take place inside the forest because the forest holds tremendous spiritual significance. As I said, the Indian civilization is a forest civilization. If there had been no forests on the Indian subcontinent, there would have been no India, at least no India as we know it now. Perhaps the earliest, perhaps the earliest expression of worship of the forest is found in the Rig Veda 10:146 6. Him to Aranyani. Him to Aranyani, Rig Veda 10:146 6. Picturizes the forest as a motherly figure, as the provider of all bounties. We are weary, my heart, we are weary. So long we have borne the heavy luft burden of dreams that are dead. Let us rest. Let us scatter their ashes away. For a while let us mourn. We will rest, O my heart, till the shadows are grey in the west. Again, I would like to read the first two lines of the middle stanza. We are weary, my heart, we are weary. So long we have borne the heavy luft burden of dreams that are dead. Let us rest. These are extremely poignant lines, painful, sorrowful. The speakers are weary, tired, exhausted, fed up. We are weary, my heart, we are weary. So long we have borne the heavy luft burden of dreams. They have been bearing the burden, the weight of their dead dreams for quite some time. And now they're exhausted, they're tired. Heavy luft burden. Heavy luft burden. What a beautiful construction. Burden. It's heavy. What are they carrying? The corpse of the dreams, the corpses of the dreams. But why is it luft burden? When somebody you love dies, you're shattered, and you carry the dead body, you carry the corpse, you find it very heavy, but at the same time, it's a luft burden. Because what you're carrying is the corpse of a person you loved very much with all your heart. That's precisely what is happening here. What are the speakers carrying? The heavy luft burden of dreams that are dead. Is there anything more dear to us than our dreams? Is there anything more cherished to us than our dreams? We love our dreams perhaps more than we love ourselves. And here the speakers are carrying the corpse of the dreams. It's a heavy burden. It's a luft burden. They can carry it no more. Let us rest. They can carry it no longer because they are simply exhausted, tired. What powerful moving lines are these? I think that we can stand the destruction of almost anything, but we cannot stand the destruction of our dreams. That is why we always find, generally, we find that old men, old women are often sad, sorrowful, lost, forlorn, because their dreams are dead. And that is why we find young men, young women, generally orphan, excited, happy, elated, thrilled, because they have dreams. The dreams are alive and they live for the dreams. Once your dreams are destroyed, there is no point in wanting to live. Here, the speakers find that their dreams are dead. And they have been carrying the corpse of their dreams as a luft burden for quite some time. They're weary. They're weary. They're tired. They're exhausted. And they want to rest. Excuse me, I feel like quoting a couple of lines from Langston Hughes, the star of the Harlem Renaissance. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Unquote. Let us scatter their ashes away. For a while, let us mourn. We will rest. O my heart, till the shadows are grey in the west. The cremation is over. And what has to be done now? The ashes are being scattered away. You must remember that ash is an excellent organic fertilizer. It's rich in calcium, rich in potassium. And where are the ashes being scattered? In the forest. Let us scatter their ashes away. The ashes obtained as a result of the cremation of the dead body of the dreams. The dreams are dead, the dreams are cremated, and the ashes obtained as a result of the cremation of the corpse of the dreams are scattered. As I said, ash is an excellent organic fertilizer. And the ashes are scattered in the forest because the cremation took place in the forest. Let us scatter their ashes away. For a while, let us mourn. Nobody can be happy when somebody whom we love very much, whom we cherish, whom we treasure, dies and is cremated. That is precisely what has happened here. Our dreams, which we love very much, which we cherish, which we treasure, died, and the dead body of the dreams were cremated, and the ashes have been scattered. So what shall we do now? For a while, let us mourn. For a while, not forever, because there is nothing that time cannot cure. There is nothing that time cannot cure. We shall mourn for some time, not forever. We will rest. We are exhausted, tired. Our dreams have been destroyed. Our dreams have been cremated. The ashes have been scattered. And so we will rest. O my heart, till the shadows are grey in the west. Probably the best explanation is that till sunset, till the day comes to an end, till the shadows become very weak, grey, very weak, and then they disappear. I would like to stop for a moment and quote a line from the Matsya Purana. Deshaputra Samo Druma. Deshaputra Samo Druma. A tree is equivalent to 10 suns. A tree is equal to 10 suns. And you must remember that this was said in a society which was basically patriarchal and patrilineal and producing a son to carry forward the lineage, the dynasty, the tradition, the heritage was looked upon as the greatest and the most glorious thing. And it is in such a society that the Matsya Purana declares Dejaputra Samudruma. A tree is equal to 10 suns. We speak of eco-criticism, eco-theory, and the rise of eco-criticism and the rise of eco-theory in the 1970s and the 1980s in the West. This is said in the Matsya Purana, which originated before Christ, maybe 200, BC 200 or BC 300, and which evolved and changed and transformed over the centuries. So whenever I hear of the word eco-theorists. I say we Indians were eco-theorists before eco-theory. We now come to the last answer. But soon we must rise. O my heart, we must wander again into the war of the world and the strife of the throng. Let us rise, O my heart. Let us gather the dreams that remain. We will conquer the sorrow of life with the sorrow of song. A very powerful, a very moving, a very rousing closure. I shall read the first two lines of the first stanza once again. But soon we must rise, O my heart, we must wander again into the war of the world and the strife of the throng. The thematic trajectory of the poem executes a dramatic U-turn. In the central stanza, we were overwhelmed by a sense of defeat, by a sense of death, and we thought that everything had come to an end. And indeed it had. But now, suddenly, unexpectedly, the thematic trajectory of the poem executes a dramatic U-turn. But soon we must rise. But soon we must rise. I think this is one of the great messages of the Indian civilization. The message that no end is the end. The end is never the end. Because after the end, there is the beginning. After death, there is rebirth. After defeat, there is victory. But soon we must rise. O my heart, we must wander again into the war of the world and the strife of the throng. We have to get into the world again, wander into the world again. And what kind of world is it? Into the war of the world. We talk of world wars. But here, the world itself is war. There is no need of a world war. Into the war of the world. The world is always undergoing war. All existence is struggle. All existence is conflict. Without conflict, without struggle, there is no existence. Into the war of the world and the strife for the throng. Strife means struggle, throng means crowd. Existence, by definition, is conflict, is struggle. And we have to enter that struggle again, enter into that struggle again. We have to enter into the world, and the world is war, conflict. We have to enter into the strife, the throng, the struggle of the crowd. So, a sudden, unexpected U turn is found in the thematic trajectory of the poem. I would like to weave into the discussion of this poem, written by Sarojini Naidu, the most famous woman poet of the pre independence period in Indian writing in English. And the locale of the poem is the forest. I would like to weave into the discussion of this poem what another very famous Indian poet, Rabindranath Tagore, perhaps the most famous Indian poet in any language of the pre-independence period. He won the Nobel Prize in 1913, yes, and became the first Indian, not just the first Indian, the first Asian, not just the first Asian, the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize for literature. I think it's not merely for literature to win the Nobel Prize itself. What it Rabindranath Tagore think of the forest? I would like to weave Tagore's ideas into the discussion of, of this poem. Rabindranath Tagore saw India as a forest civilization. The forest is the cradle of the Indian civilization. And he tried to draw a distinction between the forest civilization of India and the city state or the nation state civilizations of the West. Western civilizations are, according to him, walled civilizations. Here we have no walls. Our, our source of civilization is the forest. The forest teaches us a way of life which is very different from the way of life taught by the nation state civilizations of the West. It teaches us harmonious coexistence. It is the source of our wisdom. It provides us with intellectual and creative renewal. It teaches us the concept of enoughness. You're satisfied with what the forest gives you. Of course, the forest is a source of natural resources, but more than that, Tagore saw it as a source of spiritual resources. Let us rise, O my heart, let us gather the dreams that remain. We will conquer the sorrow of life with the sorrow of song. Please note the striking contrast, the dramatic difference between the opening of the poem and the closure of the poem. When the poem opens, all hope is lost. Our dreams are destroyed, and we are building a funeral pyre to cremate the dreams. When the poem ends, we are in a very different mood. The poem has a rousing closure. We find that not all our dreams have been destroyed. Many of our dreams are dead, but some dreams remain. The narrators say, the speakers say, let us gather the dreams that remain. Please understand, there will never ever be complete defeat, complete destruction. From every defeat, from every destruction, there will be the possibility of renewal, of revival, of ultimate success, of ultimate victory. So here the narrators say, let us gather the dreams that remain. We will conquer the sorrow of life with the sorrow of song. Life contains sorrow. No life is without sorrow. That is why in Advaita Vedanta, we don't pray for, we don't desire for rebirth as a king, as an emperor, as a millionaire, as the world's richest man. We pray for the merger with the Paramatman. Because any birth is bound to have its share of sorrow. We will conquer the sorrow of life with the sorrow of song. Song, set of words which are set to music. But I think the word song has a number of meanings and many of them are applicable here. First of all, song, set of words which are set to music, set of words which are meant to be sung. So we will conquer the sorrow of life with the sorrow of song, not the joy of song. Because our sweetest songs tell our saddest thoughts. But that is why we see We enjoy tragedy so much. That is why we love to listen to uh, sad songs, sorrowful songs. Song means, as I said, any set of words which can be sung. But song can stand for art in general, for literature in general, for art in general. We will conquer the sorrow of life with the sorrow of literature, the sorrow of poetry. Song can mean love song. We will conquer the sorrow of life with the sorrow of romance. Ultimately, romance is sorrowful. Ultimately, at its most intense moments, romance is tinged with sadness, tinged with sorrow, tinged with the awareness that this is not going to last forever. Song can mean prayer song, with the poet having the Vedic mantras in mind. We will conquer, we will conquer the sorrow of life with the sorrow of song, with the sorrow of spiritual incantations, with prayer songs. The word song has several meanings, many meanings, and almost all of them are excellently applicable here. In the forest of Sarojini Naidu is an excellent example of Indian forest poetry. Instead of seeing In the Forest as a standalone poem, instead of seeing its author, Sarojini Naidu, as a standalone poet, it would be more meaningful to understand that the poem and its author are part of and also the product of a long and great tradition. We in India have a long, great tradition of forest poetry. The Ramayana, the Mahabharata, Kalidasa, Rabindranath Tagore, and of course Sarojini Naidu. I have just spoken of 4 or 5 points in that great tradition. And between these 5 points, there are numerous poets who have contributed to the rich, diverse, varied tradition of forest poetry. We shall now attempt an eco-critical evaluation of the poem. The term ecocriticism was used for the first time in 1978 by William Ruckert. In 1978, William Ruckert published the essay Literature and Ecology, an Experiment in Ecocriticism. I repeat, Literature and Ecology, an Experiment in Ecocriticism. We can say that that was the beginning of ecocriticism, and that the beginnings were rather tentative. Ecocriticism and eco-theory rose to prominence in the late 1970s and the 1980s in Western academia. Eco-criticism adopted a multidisciplinary approach. It tried to shatter subject boundaries. It tried to see literature in the context of ecology. It rejected anthropocentrism. It pointed out that man is just, or rather, human being, old man, and you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. It pointed out that man is just one species on this planet. And it is a huge mistake to think that the world consists of just all the human beings here. On the other hand, the world consists of the entire ecosphere or the biosphere of the earth. It attempted to cite literary texts in the context of ecological issues. It tried to study the relationship between human beings and ecology as presented in the literary texts. It tried to evaluate literary texts from the point of view of ecology, from the point of view of how they treated ecological issues. The conviction that we are not alone on this planet and that it is impossible for us to survive alone after the destruction of the rest of the ecology is inscribed into eco theory. As I've already observed, many of the principles of eco-criticism, many of the principles of eco theory have been staple concepts in India for thousands of years. We were eco theorists long before eco theory. Eco criticism, eco theory may have been a curious novelty in 1978 or 1980 in, in the American academia. But these very same ideas had been voiced in India long before eco theory rose to prominence in the West, thousands of years before eco criticism rose to prominence in the West. We have in India a long and rich tradition of forest poetry. And this tradition includes the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, Kalidasa, Rabindranath Tagore, and Sarojini Naidu is only a product of this tradition and also part of this tradition. Any ecocritical evaluation of the poems of Sarojini Naidu should remember that she is the product of this long and rich tradition of forest poetry in India. In the Forest is a poem which readily submits itself to an ecocritical reading. At the very beginning of the poem, we find the speakers dejected because their dreams are dead. Death is part of the cycle of existence. Death occurs not merely to human beings but to all living things. And the speakers, finding that their dreams are dead, go to the forest. They do not go to the city. They do not go to the town. They do not go to the village. They go to the forest. And there they decide to cremate the dead body of their dreams. Cremate, not bury. There is a tremendous significance in this from the ecological point of view. Cremation instead of burial. And they build a funeral pyre, making use of fallen white petals and leaves that are mellow and red. They do not use fresh wood. They do not cut down trees. They do not chop off branches. Instead, they use what is already fallen, fallen white petals and ripe leaves that are soft and red. And they decide to burn the dead body of their dreams. And they use noon's flaming torches of fire. Again, the fire is borrowed from nature, an ecological way of lighting the pyre and they decide to mourn the death. How long do they mourn the death, or before that? They scatter the ashes. They scatter the ashes obtained from the cremation. I've already said that ash is an excellent organic fertilizer. And so they scatter the ashes in the forest. And then they continue mourning. How long do they mourn? Till the shadows are grey in the west, till it's sunset. A deep awareness of the cyclical nature of existence runs in this poem. They wait till sunset to continue mourning. And in the last stanza of the poem, we find an effort at revival. They gather the dreams that remain and decide to conquer the sorrow of life with the sorrow of song. As I said, everything is cyclical in nature, in existence, in human life. What sets has to rise, what falls has to rise. And though the speakers mourned till sunset, they find that they are unable to mourn the next morning, though the next morning is not clearly specified. The point is that nothing is forever, nothing is permanent. Every defeat turns into success, every death turns into rebirth, every destruction turns into recreation. This is the basic principle of nature, of ecology. Thus, this poem explores the two fundamental principles of nature: the principle of change, the change principle, and the cyclical principle. The first principle is that there is change. There is change everywhere. The only thing that does not change is change itself. There cannot be anything which does not change. Dreams die, petals fall, leaves grow mellow and red. The dreams, when cremated, become ash. The ashes become part of the earth. The sun sets, the shadows become grey, the day comes to an end. Thus, we find the change principle, the principle of change, embedded in nature, inscribed into nature. And this poem comprehensively explores the change principle. The second principle that is explored in this poem is the cyclical principle. In nature, everything is cyclical. What falls down gets up. What sets rises. What dies is reborn. What is born dies. But what dies is reborn. Day gives way to night, but night again gives way to day. You find this principle being explored beautifully in this poem. Dreams die. Dreams are cremated. The dead body of the dreams becomes ash. But the ash is scattered, and the ash becomes fertilizer for the trees scattered in the forest. Organic, excellent organic fertilizer for the trees, contributing to the life of the trees. The sun sets, the shadows become grey, but There is a daybreak that comes after that. Night leads to day, just as day leads to night. Sorrow leads to joy. Joy leads to sorrow, but sorrow also leads to joy. And this cyclical principle is explored in detail, comprehensively, beautifully in this poem. The poem consists of 12 lines, 3 stanzas, 4 lines each. Thus, the poem is organized in 3 stanzas of 4 lines each, and totally the poem comprises 12 lines. The meter used is anapestic tetrameter. Tetrameter means each line has 4 feet. Anapestic means the foot is anapest. Each foot consists of 2 unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable. Anapest is a foot consisting of 3 syllables. 2 unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable. As a result of using anapestic tetrameter, the poet is able to provide the poem with an energetic rhythm, a galloping speed. The poem flows rapidly from beginning to end. On the whole, the poet uses anapestic tetrameter, but at certain points there are some slight variations. The rhyme scheme used is AB AB. The images are striking and sharply etched. We have images of the funeral pyre, of petals, of leaves, of flaming torches, of sunset, of ashes, of struggle, of war, of song. The poet takes care to use ordinary, simple, everyday words. There is not a single word in the poem which the average reader would fail to recognize at first sight. The result is that the diction of the poem gives full support to the energetic flow of the poem, the energetic fluidity of the poem. The diction of the poem facilitates the galloping pace of the poem. We shall now try to analyze the important figures of speech used in the poem. Alliteration is the figure of speech in which the same or almost the same consonant sound is repeated in close succession. There are several examples of alliteration in the poem. Look at the first line of the poem: dreams that are dead. Or the second line: fashion a funeral pyre. Or the third line: petals and leaves that are mellow and red. Assonance is the figure of speech in which vowel sounds are repeated in close succession. Sometimes it may not be the same vowel sound, but similar vowel sounds. Look at this, the opening line of the second stanza. We are weary, so long we have borne. Look at the third last line of the poem. Into the war of the world and the strife of the throng. Anaphora is the figure of speech in which words are repeated, sets of words are repeated in close succession. We find it In the opening line of the second stanza, we are weary, my heart, we are weary, so long we have borne. The words my heart and oh my heart are repeated several times in the poem. We find it in the very first line of the poem. Here, O my heart, let us burn. This is how the opening line of the central stanza goes. We are weary, my heart, we are weary, so long we have borne. The last line of the central stanza. We will rest, O my heart, till the shadows are grey in the west. The first line of the last stanza. But soon we must rise, O my heart. And the second last line of the poem, the second last line, the last stanza, which is also the second last line of the poem. Let us rise, O my heart, let us gather the dreams that remain. Apostrophe is the figure of speech in which the speaker turns to address somebody or something, usually absent or non existent or dead, or at least not available in a concrete form. In the present poem, we come across this figure of speech repeatedly. Look at the opening line of the poem. Here, O my heart. The heart is addressed. But is the heart something existent in a concrete manner before the speaker? Certainly not. Look at the last line of the central stanza of the poem. We will rest, O my heart. Look at the opening line of the last stanza of the poem. But soon we must rise, O my heart. Look at the second last line of the poem, the penultimate line of the poem. Let us rise, O my heart. Let us gather the dreams that remain. The central symbol in the poem is, of course, the forest. The forest is very much a physical forest, a real forest, with trees, leaves, flowers, with all the flora that we can find in a forest. But more than that, much more than that, it is also a symbol. I've told you that India is a forest civilization. Sanatana Dharma is a forest religion. The Vedas were produced in the forests. The Ramayana, the Mahabharata, very much forest literature, at least in certain parts. The forest plays a significant role in Indian literature, including in Kalidasa. The forest stands for the divine. You must understand that Sanatana Dharma is a religion which sees the divine in everything, in trees particularly. The forest is sacred space. The forest stands for the divine, for things which are beyond the comprehension of the human brain. The forest represents nature. The forest represents a cyclic principle, cyclic principle of nature. The forest symbolizes life itself. The forest is a symbol for existence itself. In enchantment, the thought in one line overflows from that line to the next line. And there is no punctuation, there is no pause between the two lines. Sometimes it overflows from one stanza to the next stanza. Enjambment contributes to the fluidity of the poem, to the smooth flow of the trajectory of the poem. We find several examples of enjambment in the present poem. Take a look at the second and the third lines. Fashion a funeral pyre or fallen white petals. There is no pause after a pyre. There is no punctuation after pyre. Or look at the opening lines, the first line and the second line of the central stanza. So long we have borne the heavy loved burden of dreams. There is no punctuation, there is no pause after a borne. The thought flows from the first line to the second line. We have borne the heavy loved burden. Or look at the two opening lines of the last stanza of the poem. We must wander again into the war of the world. No punctuation after again. We must wander again into the war of the world. No pause after again. We must wander again into the war of the world and the strife of the throng. The opposite of enjambment is, strictly speaking, end stopped, where there is a pause at the end of the line and there is no overflow of thought from that line to the next line. But we can also say that, in a way, the opposite of enjambment is caesura. Caesura is a pause in the middle of the line. Look, then let us take a look at the third line of the middle stanza. Let us scatter their ashes away, comma, for a while let us mourn. Let us scatter their ashes away, pause, for a while let us mourn. This is a classic example of caesura. I would like to conclude the discussion by saying a few words about Edmund Gosse and Sarojini Naidu. Edmund Gosse was a prominent critic and poet of the late 19th century and the early 20th century, though he is a largely forgotten figure today. He became Sarojini Naidu's mentor, and it is to be remembered that she dedicated her first collection of poems, The Golden Threshold, to Gosse. Edmund Gosse advised Sarojini Naidu, the young Sarojini Naidu, to write more about India, to choose more Indian themes, to ensure that the imagery of her poetry is Indian, and above all, to infuse her work with the spirit of India. After reading In the Forest, we can safely conclude that Sarojini Naidu took the advice of Edmund Gosse to heart. And the result is that she was able to produce gems like, little masterpieces like In the Forest.